Hi everyone, it's Daniela Sigia from Textile Waste Diversion, and I'm at one of our bins. We are one of the first companies to do something new. We're very public about our private sector experience in this industry. Let me turn the camera around. So this is our sign. So we accept, see that? Black and white, so there's no disputing what we're claiming. We are a for-profit family business. Now, just because we're not a charity and we are a for-profit company doesn't mean that we're not charitable. And some might even argue that we are more charitable than some of the big charities that are actually operating in this industry. I'm not making that claim, but I have heard it said. So more than once. And I have 35 charities that have fundraised with us last year alone. And we have a partnership with Bee City Canada and Small Scale Farms, and we've got those bins going out across the province where we think that we can. But it's getting harder and harder because there's this small glam squad of charities, that's what I call them, the glam squad. Maybe it's a coincidence that they all sell to Value Village / Savers, that, you know, I've heard them. Like, I've gone to stakeholder sessions, for example, most recently in Toronto, where diabetes rep, Simon is his name, goes on and on repeat about how Toronto should do exactly like Markham. Well, Markham imposed a monopsony that anybody who sells to Value Village competitors did not get a permit to operate. And the only charities that got permits to operate in Markham were Value Village charities. And in Stratford, at least in Markham, there's like 3 or 4 of them. In Stratford, it's just diabetes. So any business that decides they want to host one of these, so, you know, why shouldn't he as a business owner use his own property to fundraise for whoever he wants? But in cities like Stratford and Markham, they're saying no. You have to only fundraise for Value Village charities. So what? Charities that sell to Value Village's biggest competitors like Talese, National Thrift, you know, they're not allowed to have inventory for their stores and to support whatever charities choose to sell to them. Wow! Boys and girls, that's called a monopsony, and it's illegal. So what happens when there's only one buyer? So in this case, in Stratford, that's a monopsony, right? Because there's only one place all the clothes are gonna go. In Markham is also a monopsony, because although they have more than one charity collecting, it's less than a handful, but although that's what they'll say, well, there's 3, it's not a monopoly. Maybe not, but all of those 3, indirectly or directly, deal with Savers, which owns Value Village. And when there's only one buyer at the end of the chain, that's a monopsony. And why that's dangerous is because big bloated Goliaths that kind of remind me of Blockbuster Video 2.0, when they create these monopsonies, it often is problematic for the countries they operate, in this case East Africa. And we have a lot of trade tension in East Africa, kind of like we had with China. And China had threatened Canada for a long time. We're going to stop buying your clothes. And no one believed them. And then they did. And everybody scrambled. Kind of like we saw China and canola, right? Well, now the shenanigans is happening in East Africa through Savers and their Canadian charities that collect and sell to them. I do not begrudge the success of Value Village. What I begrudge is when I see municipal officials clearing the way to give a foreign-owned corporation like Savers a complete monopoly on inventory control. Why shouldn't first of all, why shouldn't other charities collect, but why shouldn't the private sector be allowed to collect? In Mississauga, in Ottawa, those are the rules. So it's limiting competition. And Canada has the Canadian Competition Act. And some of the activities or behavior we've seen can be perceived as abuse of power. Something similar happened in the city of Vancouver when they tried this crap. And a whole bunch of agencies, including a Chamber of Commerce and business development associations, they actually did an economic study on, you know, despite the claims of sustainability or whatever the cities make about these textile pilots, how much it actually costs the economy and society in jobs lost and loss of industry diversity. And they were forced to back off. So my basic point is that Value Village is not the only thrift store in Ontario. It is a thriving, or used to be, a thriving, blossoming industry. Mom and pop thrift shops were opening up like crazy, and all of their major competitors were doing major expansions before suddenly municipalities decided to give flow control to Value Village. And now I'm seeing experts that are suddenly all singing Value Village praises in articles and newspapers, and they talk about every other collector that sells to Value Village big competitors and paint them as rogue or not worthy, or only talk about organizations that collect for Value Village, but will never mention anybody else. They make me sick, and that's become a plague. And when you have Value Village kind of money, you can get the best press, you can fund the best voices and the biggest lobbyists, and you can outfit your charities to do the same. And then nobody else stands a chance. And that's why we have the Canadian Competition Act, to protect the Canadian economy from foreign interests coming in and gobbling up everything for their benefit at the expense of the Canadian economy. And it needs to step in.